Good evening and welcome to the WDSU News Hot Seat. I'm Travers Mackle. Tonight, we are talking the upcoming political season in the city of New Orleans. Yes, once again, it is political season. We have the big races for mayor, city council, sheriff, and every other parish-wide elected office. Joining us to discuss this in depth, a familiar face, Dr. Ed Chervenak from the University of New Orleans.
How you doing, Travers?
I'm doing good. I think we're going to be busy coming up here in the next couple of weeks and months.
I think that we will be, yes, sir.
So let's just jump right into the mayor's race. Mayor Mitch Landrieu termed out, barred by term limits from seeking a third term in office. You have 4 announced candidates right now. Latoya Cantrella, city councilwoman, 2 former judges, Desiree Charbonnet, as well as Michael Begnaris, and then local businessman Frank Scurlock. Does this remain the big 4? Does anybody else get into this field?
Well, they're the big 4 right now. Not sure whether anyone else is going to jump in. There was some sense that maybe Karen Carter-Peterson may dip her toe into the waters, but she has since said that she's not going to get in, and she's a pretty big name. So it's really hard to say whether someone will get in at the last minute. Typically, what we've seen the last 3 mayoral elections is the latecomer jump in, get momentum, all right, and then carry that momentum into the election.
Sidney Torres is a name that's out there, the local businessman. He has said, he's on record saying that he's probably going to decide at qualifying, maybe the last day of qualifying. Do you, not that you have a crystal ball, do you think he could run in this race, and what does that do for the dynamic with the other 4 right now?
Well, if he does decide to get in, what he certainly brings is name recognition. The poll I saw showed that he had the highest name recognition of any of the candidates. And so he could bring certainly celebrity into the election and generate some excitement in that way. And in addition, given the fact that he has the resources, he can self-finance, and so he doesn't have to rely on donors, you know, and take this into consideration. He can just decide, I have the money, I'm going to put it towards running for mayor.
Is it almost the Donald Trump theory, the wealthy outsider looking at something saying, this office interests me and I can frame myself that way to voters?
The wealthy outsider with a reality TV show, no less.
Right.
So there are some parallels there. You know, I think it would basically come down to the fact that he feels that he can address the crime issue. That seems to be his big issue, particularly in the French Quarter. And so maybe he's got a plan that he would like to institute here in the city to address the ongoing crime situation.
Why does this race shake out like this? We've all heard for months that this is going to be a big field, maybe 10 or 12 candidates. Right now there are 4 announced. Why does it appear that people may not be attracted to the job of mayor? Karen Carter, you just said, is an interesting name. Head of the state Democratic Party, well-known politician, has a good record to campaign on, but on Wednesday of last week, she said, I'm not really interested in running for mayor of New Orleans. I'm going to stay where I am in the Senate. Why has this not attracted more candidates?
It is kind of interesting because we've seen in the last couple cycles a large number of candidates, you know, throw their hat in the ring. I think a lot of it is the fact that it's very difficult to raise money today. Campaigns are extremely expensive. Media, polling, you know, just paying for the pizza for volunteers, that all costs money. And it's just people are finding it harder to raise the amount of money that it takes to run a credible campaign. And in addition, I mean, we're kind of in a period right now where politics is kind of looked down upon. And for some reason, public service isn't as viewed as a way to go, as, you know, as a kind of career. And in addition, once you decide to run for office, you put yourself under that media microscope. And not just yourself, but certainly the people around you. And so a lot of people don't want that intense focus on them by the media. And so I think it's just a combination of things. I don't think it's any really one thing out there.
And it's a lot of work. I mean, let's be honest, this is a job that's probably a 12 to 18 hour a day job in the city of New Orleans.
Yes, it's a huge responsibility. You're right, 12 to 18 hours easily. And that, you know, you basically have to roll with the punches because there are going to be a lot of punches thrown at you as the mayor. Whatever decision you make is going to alienate someone or anger someone and make some people happy. And a lot of people just don't really have the wherewithal to deal with that. that.
Let's quickly break down the 4 candidates who are in the mayor's race right now. Let's start with Frank Skurlock, a local businessman. Most people consider him kind of a Hail Mary pass, if you will. He's got a lot of advertising out there, but a lot of people consider him a long shot now.
Yeah, he's a long shot. He's probably one of these candidates that probably get about 2 to 3% in the election. Kind of just more of a protest candidate than anything else.
The other 3, though, have all sought elective office. 1 ran for mayor, and Michael Bagnares. They're all seasoned at campaigns. You and I talked about this earlier in the week, but you have a city councilwoman and then 2 former judges who have given up their positions. Michael Bagnares 4 years ago to run for mayor, and he's running again, and then Desiree Charbonnet right now. How do things break down with them?
Well, right now, if you look at the polling, LaToya Cantrell is first among equals with about a quarter of the vote out there, with Charbonnet in second and Michael Bagnares coming in third. And I think that Cantrell has the advantage because she probably has the highest profile right now. She's a city council member, and she's also already campaigning. She's conducted this listening tour throughout various neighborhoods in the city, whereas Charbonnet and Bagnares really haven't started the groundwork in terms of campaigning, of getting out there and advertising and just going out there and meeting people one at a time and getting a sense of what people are concerned about. So I probably rank order them, with Cantrell, Charbonnet, and Bagnares, with about over a third of the people still undecided. So there's lots of room for growth for these candidates.
Is this an election that a lot of people, we deal with this every 4 years, and every election is the biggest election the city is ever going to have. But are there a lot of eyeballs on this one, given the fact that we are heading into the tricentennial, that Mayor Michelangelo is term limited out? I don't know if any of these candidates will seek his endorsement, but is this one of these ones that a lot of people, more than normal, given the uptick in crime, do more people than usual have their eye on this election right now?
It doesn't seem that more people have their eye on this election. When you have an open seat, you typically would think that there would be a flood of individuals who would want to decide, because here's your best opportunity to get into that seat. And that you're right, we're going to be, celebrating our 300th birthday here, and so that's going to be lots of fanfare for whoever's mayor for the next year. And campaigns are typically spectacles here, just like we have Mardi Gras and other events like that. And
spectator sport too in some cases.
Yes, and a spectator sport, and also it can be a contact sport as well.
Right.
So it is kind of odd that the fact that we do have this open seat, that we don't have more people challenging these 4 candidates for this seat.
We will see how things shake out. Let's move to the council races. All 7 seats up for grab. 2 at-large, 5 district council races. Does anything jump out of any of these races to you? Some incumbents running for re-election, like Jason Williams, like James Gray, like Nadine Ramsey, are all seeking re-election. Do those interest you as much as the open seats right now?
The incumbent always has the advantage, and so they've got an advantage not just in name recognition, but also in terms of financial contributions. It's much easier for people to donate to the incumbent because they're already there. And people who donate money don't really want to give the money to a challenger because the odds are they're not going to win, unless an incumbent is, captured by some scandal or something like that. And these city council races also seem to be relatively low-key as well. We're not seeing a lot of challengers to these incumbents. I haven't seen any challengers to Jared Brossette.
I did leave Jared Brossette, and I apologize, as one of the incumbents. So yes, Jared Brossette, and there isn't a challenger for him, I don't believe. Right?
I don't believe either, or for Nadine Ramsey. Where we're seeing most of the candidates are in District A and District B, which are both open seats.
And those are important areas of the city. You're talking Lakeview, Uptown, through Central City, touching parts of the Central Business District. District B is open because LaToya Cantrell has announced that she's running for mayor. District A because Susan Guidry is termed out.
Yes.
Could you see crowded fields in those races? Right now I think about 3 or 4 candidates have announced for each one of those districts.
Yeah, I could definitely see crowded candidates there because it's much easier to win in a city council seat. You only have to appeal to a small number of the electorate, small number of voters, as opposed to citywide. You can concentrate your resources in a particular area, and it's more along the lines of friends and neighbors, when you're running in these districts, and to mobilize those people as opposed to mobilizing citywide.
The council at large race, Jason Williams, most people think will go back in. We don't know if he's even going to get an opponent, but like you said, a lot of these races favor the incumbent. The other seat appears to be 2 state representatives, Helena Moreno against Joe Bowie. More people could get in that that race, but it seems like this council at large race, which represents all of Orleans Parish, is going to be those two.
Looks like those two right now, unless, of course, someone decides to get in by next Friday. And, you know, there I think you would have to give the advantage to Helena Moreno. She just has a much higher profile than Joe Bowie does right now. She's very active in terms of gender politics at the state level. And so I think, you know, she basically wants to take what she's done at the state level and bring it back here to the city.
Real quickly, one of the final races, we do have the assessor's race. The clerks of court are coming up, civil and criminal. The sheriff's race, Sheriff Marlon Gusman is up for re-election. We first reported this about a month and a half ago that Ronald Surpass, the former NOPD superintendent, is considering running. Does that change the dynamic of this race? Is that really a big challenger for Marlon Gusman?
Well, that'll be interesting to see because Ronald Surpass has never run for office before. He was appointed, you know, the police chief by Mayor Landrieu. And so I'm not sure what kind of campaign team he could put together, how well he does campaign, but that would be an extremely interesting race. Any race with Marlon Gusman is going to be very interesting because of the controversy surrounding OPP. You know, there may be some call for change based on the fact that it is under this federal consent decree and that it may be time for new leadership. We'll have to see whether Surpass will offer his services or not.
But bottom line, final question, because we are running out of time. If people haven't announced right now, or if they haven't previously announced, are they at a disadvantage jumping in at qualifying because it's so hard to raise money and it's so hard to get your name out there?
The name recognition is key. Particularly for the citywide races. And so if you're not very well known and you don't have the resources at hand and you don't have a sense of where people are in terms of what the issues are, I think you're going to be at a distinct disadvantage.
All right. Dr. Ed Chervenik from the University of New Orleans. We will be seeing a lot of you in the next coming weeks and months. For now, I'm Travers Mackel. This is The Hot Seat. Juliana, let's send it back to you at the news desk.